The egg demands a proper introduction. Proteins protruding from the sperm's cap must hook up precisely with a set of proteins on the egg's surface. If they match, the sperm is held fast and undergoes a dramatic transformation. It sheds its outer coating, releasing powerful enzymes that dissolve a hole in the zona, allowing the sperm to push its way through. The final hurdle passed, the sperm still does not thrust its way into the egg itself. Rather, the membranes of the two cells fuse, and the egg draws the entire contents of the sperm inside.
I don't know, it was being as careful as it should have been, and October came around and I was a day late, and actually I was having some other problems with my wrist, and we went to the doctor, and the doctor had asked me, he was like, well, are you pregnant? You know, because you need to do an x-ray of my wrist. And I said, no, and then I thought about it, and I was like, well, I don't know. I decided that I would better check this out. Sure enough, it was positive. And when he came home, I was like,
Oh, she has something to tell me.
so I was like, well, you better sit down. He just
It was something that we had discussed,
yeah.
but hadn't anticipated until about 2 more years down the road. So when she told me, I was ecstatic.
You're ready. You're definitely ready. It's like a little early.
Ready or not, once sperm and egg get together, they have their own agenda to create a viable embryo. Their chances aren't great. It's estimated that more than 50% of all fertilized eggs fail to develop. If it's going to survive, the egg has a lot of work to do. Orders the zona to lock out all other sperm. And then the egg must finish meiosis, expelling half of its chromosomes into this tiny pouch called a polar body. With the door closed behind it, the single sperm already inside releases its precious cargo. The sperm's 23 chromosomes stretch out in the roomy, well-being egg. The chromosomes of sperm and egg approach each other, and then the cell divides. It's the moment the sperm ends, 24 hours have passed. All this time, the fertilized egg is moving down the fallopian tube toward the uterus. Every few hours, the cells divide. 4, 8, 16. Gradually creating the building blocks needed to construct an embryo. On rare occasions, the tiny cluster of cells splits into 2 groups and creates 2 embryos, identical twins. But most of the time, the cells stick together. They must complete just the right number of cell divisions before they arrive in the uterus about 5 days after fertilization. What started as a large single cell has divided into just over 100 much smaller cells. But they're still trapped within the hard shell of the zona. Now called a blastocyst, the bundle of cells must do 2 things to survive: break out of the zona and find a source Of course, that never really registered until the first time it started happening to me.
Yeah, really does. He would get really, really nauseous and upset and actually get physically ill sometimes. I mean,
There was a couple of times when that, well, more than a couple of times when that actually happened. Not everybody gets morning sickness. Sometimes months can go by before the mother gets any sense of the drama unfolding within her body. One milestone event takes place just 2 weeks after conception, when the blastocyst is about the size of a poppy seed. This is the moment when the cells start to organize themselves into an embryo. The process is called gastrulation. With animals like frogs, whose embryos develop inside transparent eggs, it's easy to see it in action. After the egg becomes a hollow ball of many cells, some cells dive into the center, forming layers, which develop into different organs. In humans, gastrulation happens deep inside the mother's uterine lining, so it can't be photographed. But we think it works something like this. The blastocyst creates 2 oblong bubbles, one on top of the other. Sandwiched between them is a thin layer of cells. These are the cells which one day may become a baby. At the beginning of gastrulation, some cells begin moving toward the center. Then they dive downwards, creating a new lower layer. More cells plunge through, squeezing in between, forming a third. The cells in the 3 layers may not look different, but for each layer, a very different future lies ahead. The lower cells are destined to form structures like the lungs, liver, and the lining of the digestive tract. The middle layer will form the heart, muscles, bones, and blood. And the top layer will create the nervous system, including the spinal cord and brain, as well as an outer covering of skin and eventually hair. This Nerve cells, blood cells, cells lining your intestine. They all look different. They do different jobs. That's because in each of these cells, different groups of genes are turned on. And when a gene is turned on,